Hello everybody, Brad Johnson here, and I want to welcome you to a very special episode of The Expansion Point. Some may be wondering, well Brad, why are you doing it pre-recorded? This is a pre-recorded episode, and I was actually doing The Expansion Point this morning on Facebook Live through the Akashic Academy. Basically what happened was I got hit with Facebook censorship. I was doing the talk today about the acts of compassion, and it was actually twice that my Facebook Live was actually being taken down. Basically just had this refresh login quote-unquote glitch that took place, and again I had to restart my broadcast a total of 3 times, and I was definitely past my time period to share the information. So I just told everybody on Facebook Live that I would be doing a pre-recorded version of the new episode today, where we're going to be talking about the acts of compassion. So again, I have also shared about what I think about Facebook right now and Facebook Live, but of course it's those particular type of energies that require the greatest compassion as well too. So again, that will be the topic of today's episode. We'll be focusing on the acts of compassion. So the acts of compassion relate to when we're going into our human bodies, when we're moving into our human life, and we start to work together with what the shadows are telling us, everything that we're not. The great thing about compassion is that if I had a scale here, where we'd see a center line, and just below that center line we have darkness, and just above that center line we have light. And light that we could see in this example would represent the energy of love, like a beam of light, a golden beam or a white beam, whatever you want to put in there. And again, love itself is, again, yes, pure acceptance. But what love by itself does not do is it doesn't go into the darkness, because again, it's the other side of the coin, right? Shadow doesn't go into the light, light doesn't go into shadow. But there is a extra line that exists just above love. And that extra line represents that of compassion, because compassion does go into the darkness. It does go into the shadows. So when we see that extra film, that little bit of line just above the love layer, we're seeing like this anchor point, like this hook that's going through the light, coming into the darkness, and helping us to pull ourselves out of the shadows themselves. But the wonderful thing about compassion is that when we start living a life of compassion, not only are we brought into the light, we are catapulted into it. Compassion has a very unique property to it. In fact, it is the feeling that is closest to the connection to God. Actually, a lot more than love is. Love, again, is a powerful energy. It is a pure energy of acceptance. It is an acceptance, a purity vibration, absolutely. But when we're looking into compassion, compassion has a unique property. It's like a missionary. It goes directly through the light, it goes directly into the dark, and it yanks us out. It pulls us out. And the reason why compassion can do this is because we're looking at 2 fine lines here. There is a line that's above love, and there's a line that's below shadow, that's below darkness. And so what compassion does is it's able to bounce from one line to another, hook into the shadow, and bring us out. And the reason why there is that extra line that's below the darkness is because compassion is created through suffering. That's why compassion is so powerful. Because it's not just the idea where you're just kind of floating in love and you just accept everything, which is powerful, right? That's a refinement. But when you're actually coming together and bringing compassion into your life, compassion understands what suffering is. It understands about going into the deep trials and tribulations of life. And it will hook in, and it will take your hand and saying, come with me. If you're ready to accept compassion into your life, take my hand and I will catapult you into the light, as I will show you what the energy of compassion can truly do. And that is what humanity really is. We are one of the few beings, in fact perhaps even the only race in the entire universe that has the greatest levels of compassion within ourselves. You have to look back into the innocence of a child. The child themselves, when they come into the world, when they start to crawl and walk and talk, everything about them is innocence. It is purity. When they see a person suffering, they want to go over to that person. They want to help that person. They want to give them a hug. They want to share love with them. They are just completely radiating this energy of pure compassion, right? And that's our natural form. That's our natural vibration. When we come into this world, certainly it's very deeply physical. It's very solid. It's very rigid. It's very limiting in regards to its denseness. Nonetheless, when we are able to preserve that innocence within ourselves and we see other people suffering, we want to be able to help them. We want to be able to take them by the hand and assist in any way we can. That is humanity's natural blueprint. But of course, because we have been within this third density reality, and for thousands and thousands of years, much of our genetics have been tinkered with. And because we have had these tinkering situations with genetics, we have become trance machines. And these trance machines are basically trying to become very susceptible to suggestion, to subliminal technology, to subliminal comprehension in that way. And so when we go through these subliminal, suggestive states, we enter these trance forms and feeling that we have to become rude, that we have to become apathetic, that we have to become angry, that we have to become fearful when we are starting to move back into our natural vibration. And of course, we face this when we go into these trance-inducing situations about, all that's important is that I'm working my 9-to-5 job, I'm making money, I'm paying bills, I'm marrying somebody, I'm having kids, I have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'm paying off a house, I'm paying off a car, I can put my feet up for a couple hours, watch some internet, watch some TV, and then I go to bed. And I can retire at 65. And that's my entire life. And that's what I'm going to do day by day by day, like a broken record. Sorry for the dated reference. But that's how we are often programmed, right? It's the idea of trance-inducing programs. Humanity, through its own genetic tinkering, has been programmed to become entranced with these systems. It's again like looking at someone just sitting in a chair and they're having these frequencies blast upon them and they're just like this, you know, and not moving. They're just receiving these broadcasts, they're receiving these frequencies. Be obedient, right? Stay out of trouble. Don't question anything, etc., right? We go into these trance-inducing programs. Humanity has been genetically altered to become trance-induced quite easily. But now we're noticing, nowadays, here in this very moment, that is now starting to be transcended because we're moving into a higher frequency of consciousness. We're starting to become awoken from those trance states, like a person that's just staring at a wall that's filled with violence and corruption. There's now this snap of a finger that comes in, and that snap of a finger comes from compassion. And compassion snaps us out of that trance-inducing program and saying, what the hell, where am I, right? What's going on? That's it. Those who are really starting to awaken right now and who have been awakening now for many years had that moment where it was like this. It doesn't matter if you were a child, teenager, adult, senior, it doesn't matter. You had that snap of a finger. The act of compassion came in, snapped its finger, and said, now it's time for you to wake up. Now it's time for you to get out of this trance-inducing hologram. Now it's time for you to look deeper within yourself. Now it's for you to see there's a lot more to reality than what you believe through your 5 senses. And so compassion, one of its greatest acts of itself, is that it is always patient. It is always tolerant of ourselves. Even when there's times where we don't get it, it's not going to say, oh my God, this guy is not getting it. This woman's not getting it. To hell with them. I'm going back up to the light. No, it's never going to do that. Compassion will never leave your side. It will never abandon you. It will never reject you. It will never abuse you, right? But what it will do is it will be resilient, right? It will be unconditionally loving. and it will also be persistent, right? So we're looking at persistence, resilience, and unconditional loving, which means it's going to keep knocking on your door until you're able to notice somebody's knocking on that door, and it's compassion. And it's going to say, are you ready to wake up yet? Are you ready to realize that what you've been putting all of your energy towards is not going to bring a harmony to yourself? That you're working in an office, that you're working in a job that you know you couldn't care less about, that you know doesn't suit you whatsoever, that you know you really despise. And so when you get the message from compassion, it may take years, may take other lifetimes as well too, but nonetheless it will click in and saying, this corporate job is not for me. Making all this money may feel good, but I feel more empty than I ever have in my entire life, because all I feel like I'm doing is I'm going to work almost every single day. I'm doing work that I really don't care about. I'm making someone else rich, and I'm just suffering as a result of it. And now that double click has now finally come in, because compassionate energy has been working together with you and getting more intense and more intense and more intense and knocking on that door and pounding on that door until you answer. That's the nature of compassion. That's what's so brilliant about it. And then once we start to look at our life prior to the awakening state, we're noticing that, well, I don't want to do this job anymore. I don't want to work, 40, 60 hours a week. I don't feel comfortable in regards to who I feel I am right now. I feel like I'm with a partner and I don't feel like we're connecting. I'm no longer wanting to put all this money in my bank account only to live in a big house to try and fill a void for myself. I don't want to do this anymore. I now feel exactly what compassion is trying to tell me. It's showing me everything that I'm not, so that I can realize who I am. I feel I want to become more compassionate to myself. I want to be more compassionate to others. I want to help my fellow brothers and sisters. But firstly, I'm going to work upon myself. And that's when we go into a new paradigm. That's when the new paradigm begins. And the old paradigm is now something that we're still looking at. And it comes down to that situation where we're saying, well, you know what? I've woken up. I feel like I'm moving into a new direction right now, but I don't really know what to do with a lot of this old stuff that's still coming up right now. It's still telling me I still need to work. It's still telling me I need to make all this money. It's still telling me I need to take care of my house. I need to pay for my car. I need to do all those things. But I don't want to do those things anymore. I don't want to be that person that is making all this money for something that they despise. Well, what can I do? Well, this goes back to what Adronis has shared as it relates to choice and decision, right? Is that we make all of these choices out of haste. We make them out of the ego. We make them out of ignorance. We make them out of arrogance. And yes, we can make them out of stupidity as well too, right? So what we need to do is reconcile the aspects of choices that we have made to helping us go into a new level of being, which means we need to substitute those old choices with something that is even more exciting, more loving, more compassionate than everything that those old choices represented. So I'm going to start anew. I'm going to substitute. I'm not going to sacrifice anymore, right? It's not about sacrificing yourself anymore, right? Teachers of old have done that. They have certainly put their lives on the line because that was their way of demonstrating a message to helping us again reach a new realization of ourselves. But you really don't need to sacrifice yourself anymore, right? That's something that I certainly wouldn't recommend anybody to do anymore. It's more so the idea that when you can, substitute. Look into what you prefer rather than what you don't. Follow equivalent exchange, right? And compassion is helping you through this. Because when you start to move into that great state of awakening, when you start to feel that there's a lot more to this five-sense reality than all of that tedious, materialized aspect of work, of paying bills, of living a textbook inside the cardboard box type life. You move past that. You're not just, again, moving into the light with one step forward. You're putting yourself into the cup of the catapult, and you're pulling the lever, and you're shooting yourself into the light. That's what, again, is so amazing about humanity, is that we go into extremes. And we play with extremes when they're extremely in the most intense forms of extremes imaginable. And when we wake up from those extremes and we now have a glorious moment, a profound moment, an aha moment, a download, we're loading ourselves in that catapult, we're pulling the lever, and we're flying 1,000 feet in the air, and we're just flinging ourselves into the light, right? Or I could say that the energy of compassion is pulling that lever and saying, here you go, right? And you're off into the light. Because now what you're doing is you're not questioning yourself. You're not doubting your capabilities. As Adronis and as I have shared in many videos past, this is your reality. You're the creator here. You're the God of your reality. Because you're the God of your reality, what you say goes. Every decision that you make, that you stand behind, where your will is 100% behind it, the universe will always obey it. Every time. Even when there's obstructions in the way, it's showing you that there's obstructions, but it's also telling you what you can do to transcend it. Surrender. Be empty. Work upon yourself and clear yourself out as a clear instrument for the universe itself. Because that's what you are. When you're looking around your space right now, you're looking at your house, you're looking at your office, you're looking at walls, but you look out the window, you see the trees, you see the sky, you see the clouds, you see the earth around you, you see the stars beyond. Congratulations, that's your natural body. That's your true self. And that all of that energy, infinitely, stands ready to serve you. So if that serving means that I see myself as a limited being, I'm not able to be a compassionate person, I'm going to stay in suffering, well, then the universe will obey that and saying, all right, we're going to create all of these suffering walls for you because you're commanding the infinite to feel limited. You're commanding the infinite to feel unworthy, right? And of course, one of the big things that people ask when they go into the heart of their compassion and saying, yeah, but how will I still make it in this world, right? I'm not too sure what I need to do. I feel that I have compassion, but I'm not too sure if I'm going to make enough money to survive, or if I'm going to pay off my bills. What's my family going to think of me if I start walking this path of compassion? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And again, like I stated, that is the old paradigm talking to you again, because the old paradigm, your ego, still wants to say, hey, if you want to do all this compassion tripping, how are you going to make money, right? How are you going to afford a place? What are you going to do for a living that's going to pay the bills? And we therefore go into this stupor and we feel sunken down, saying, oh, how am I going to pay these bills? How am I going to live? What am I going to do? Yeah, I know compassion is great, but what about this and what about that? And what about the other thing, right? That again enters into a state of sabotage, because the whole idea here in that sense is that when you're following a path that is true to you, the universe will support you in every step of the way possible, right? It is not going to say, haha, you sucker, you followed for compassion and now it's a dead end, you're not going to go anywhere. No, that is the complete opposite to what it represents. The act of compassion is being able to be completely secure within yourself, that you trust the energy of the universe to flow through you like a clear conduit. Everything comes to you, saying that I am provided for. Providing happens. I am able to afford my own place. Affording happens, right? You receive all these finances together. You receive opportunities that are so on level, at the same par with your own love, your own compassion, and it manifests into your reality. Trust the universe. The universe is not going to kick you to the curb and saying that, yeah, within a few months you'll be dead, right? Because you were a sucker to believe in compassion, right? No, compassion is all about working with the infinite, which means there are an infinite amount of ways that you are able to take care of yourself, that the universe will provide for you when you stop worrying about it. It's only when you keep worrying about your finances, you keep worrying about your place, you keep worrying about your family, you worry about all these things, and these are the roadblocks. These are the big gigantic pillars that fall down upon your path that you are now, therefore, creating, right? It's like they're just falling right out from the sky and saying, here's a gigantic concrete block 1,000 feet tall and 1,000 feet wide. And you're not going to be able to get through that. Of course you can. You're the one that put it there in the first place, right? I can only speak as an example for myself, is that when I first started doing this work, I did this work very, very early in my spiritual development. In fact, it was just when I was doing my work for the first couple of months that I knew that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I too had those concerns. What is my family going to think about me? What are my friends going to think about me? How am I going to make money off this? You know, what's going to take place here? Am I going to be okay? Am I going to be secure with this? And continual conversations internally, again and again and again, saying, Brad, do you love what you're doing? More than anything I could ever imagine. Yes. Then stop worrying about everything else, right? Stop worrying about what other people think of you. Stop worrying about your financial situation. Stop worrying about where you feel that you're going, where you're going to end up with all of this, right? You have to become a clear channel. This is the greatest level of trust that is required for you to walk a level of compassion, to walk into that reality of compassion, and knowing that you're surrendering yourself. The universe already knows everything about you. It knows everything from A to Z. 1, 2, 3, X, Y, Z, right? Knows all of that about you. And if you don't know how to surrender to it, this is where you're going to have obstructions. This is when those gigantic concrete pillars are going to fall from the sky and block you upon your path. Because you're telling yourself, it is impossible for me to feel like I'm going to be secured by walking a life of compassion. It is impossible for me of feeling that I'm going to have so much guilt because my family won't get what I'm doing, right? And guess who's saying those words? Those are spells that you're putting upon yourself, which means you're basically hexing yourself, right? These gigantic pillars are falling out of the sky and they're landing on the ground. And this, again, represents your own spell casting, right? This is you casting spells upon yourself and saying, I'm not going to be able to do this. There's no way this is going to happen. Everybody's going to hate me. They're all going to think I'm crazy if I do this. I'm going to go bankrupt. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. Hex after hex after hex, spell cast after spell cast after spell cast. That's all you're doing, is you're creating this word alchemy. And you're sabotaging yourself by saying all these things that you put all of your certainty into. That, again, is bringing you back into suffering rather than working with the acts of compassion, right? Be very careful about what you are putting so much energy into with yourself. Because if you're putting all of that energy into yourself, these are the gigantic barriers. They're going to fall upon your path, and you're making it to the point where you feel you can't get past it. It's 1,000 feet tall. It's 1,000 feet wide. There's no way I can get through this. But it's only there because you are the one that put it there. That's the hex that you put upon yourself. It's not about other people cursing you. It's not about other people hexing you. It's the idea that your karma is being exposed. You're letting yourself know what you feel is impossible because you do not feel that you have the value within yourself to work with the acts of compassion, right? To work together with that resilience, to work together with that persistence, and to work together with that unconditionality. When you, again, let it all out, you surrender everything, and you say, I am going to be a compassionate worker. I'm going to be provided for because I know I'm going to be able to share of my work all over the world. And the universe will assist that. I know I'm going to be supported because the universe knows that I am going to become this wonderful, compassionate person to share all these messages, to share all this work, to do healing work, to help others. And that's the most exciting thing. And I'm getting behind that. I'm in alliance with that. And I'm letting that flow. Great. Those pillars are gone. Those concrete blocks are history. So this is what you have to do. For all the times that you have harmed your own innocence, you want to work together in bringing peace to that innocence. You want to heal your innocence within yourself. And your innocence is emptiness. It is the emptiness that is contained within love. You're just pure love. You're just pure acceptance. You're just pure heart. And that's it. And compassion, again, becomes that rescuer. It's that special operative that exists just above love that will pull you out of the rut, that'll pull you out of the sand, that'll pull you out of the darkness, and saying, here you go. You're now surrendering to yourself. You're now allowing all of these new paradigms of energy flowing through you. You're becoming a universal conduit. Get in this catapult. I'll pull the lever, and you're going to go flying into the light. Right? That's what's going to happen to you every single time that you let go of these extremes. You'll load yourself into a catapult, and the arm of compassion will pull the lever, and you go flying. Right? I say this because this has happened to me. I've loaded myself in the catapult several times because I've held on to extremes in the past, and feeling that there was no way out until I really started to listen to my voice of compassion. Where again, it will tell me at times, Brad, you're only protecting this idea because you're being arrogant of it. You're only protecting this idea because you're being ignorant of it. You're only protecting this idea because you're being incompetent about it. Right? So it'll be direct with you, right? And it's going to show you exactly what you're holding on to. And it's even going to tell you this is what you have to do to let go of it. And that's the unique thing about compassion, because light/love itself is not here to teach you anything. Light/love represents the refinement of what you have learned based upon a situation that you're still in the shadows with. But compassion is quite different, because once the shadows start instructing you about telling you everything that they are and realizing what you're not, compassion steps in and saying, now that shadow has told you everything that you're not, are you now ready to take my hand? And we go together, and I'll catapult you into the light. And if you're still being stubborn about it, compassion will give you that friendly little bop on your head, right? It'll pound on your door and saying, look at what you're doing to yourself. Look at what you're still putting yourself through. Are you ready to surrender your ignorance, your arrogance, and your incompetence so that you can become a free, universal vessel, clear of any distraction, clear of any conflict, clear of any form of self-doubt upon yourself, so that you can now fly into the light? Yes, I'm now ready to surrender. Good. Load up on the catapult. Here I am pulling the lever for you. That's the act of compassion, the acts of compassion, resilience, that aspect of unconditionality and persistence. And the more that you start to get into that alignment, the more that you see yourself as this universal vessel who's empty, who has no particular forms of ambitions or passions. They already know that they're trusting what they're walking into, and there's joy every moment that they take a step. It no longer has to be about ambitions. It no longer has to be about the idea of concepts or feelings of desires or anything like that, because again, that still represents ego principle, right? It's not about ambitions. It's not about desires. It's all about the idea that you are so radiant in pure love and pure compassion that every single step you take is a step of joy, is a step of absolute brilliant bliss. And you can live this way. It's just being able to know that you have settled things with the old paradigm, and that you have replaced those old things with the new, that again reflect your pure compassion. Thank you so much for watching this episode of The Expansion Point. I'm Brad Johnson, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the next episode. Take care wherever you are in the world. Namaste, and may it be well with you. Goodbye.